My dudes, it's happening. It's finally happening. Here we are, Mass Effect Andromeda, and everything that I could find wrong with it. I am very passionate about this subject, and I think you guys know it, and for almost 4 years now, I guess 3, I have been trying to make this video, and finally I can do it. This has been a long time coming, and I am so excited about this. I've put in a lot of effort here, and I'd love to hear what you think. On that note, let's start talking about the game. Well, let me say first that this is $60 that I will never, ever get back. There's a whole lot wrong here, so I'll just take a minute to talk about what they did right. The combat. But everyone else has harped on about that. I didn't actually mind the combat in the previous games, but I do see the effort that BioWare put into making it slick and smooth and really satisfying to engage in Andromeda. I will also, I guess, take a minute to applaud the fact that they tried to tackle an entirely new galaxy. That is a huge feat in and of itself. So that's all the praise that I will give to this game. So let me start by telling you some background on the story. I know that most people have probably already played it, but again, this is my video and I want to put it in my own words. So here we go. For starters, let me tell you why I'm qualified to make this analysis. I've played 70 hours of Andromeda and completed the main missions. The only reason I stopped is because I got so bored, and I'll show you later why the real meat of the game stops at around 50 hours. The rest of the game is just a lot of useless quests designed to make it feel like there's a whole lot more to do than there actually is. It sort of reminds me of Fallout 4 in that way. The game is the story of the Ryder family, starring Clancy Brown, as Alec Ryder, the patriarch and Andromeda's new Jesus. Well, more like Moses. Alec Ryder is humanity's pathfinder. The pathfinder is a person whose job it is to find new planets that are viable for human life. Not only does the pathfinder find worlds for humans to settle on, they're in charge of terraforming planets to make them more habitable. Alec, of course, is the perfect man for the job. He's a natural leader, he's incredibly intelligent, and I'll be honest, this version of Alec is far more attractive than the one I had in my game. I mean, mine looks like a regular Indian dude with a big nose and gray hair, so please enjoy this person's version of Alec. He's much more pleasant to look at.
Okay, team, listen up. I chose each of you for the Pathfinder team, not just because you're talented and passionate, but because you're dreamers, like me. We dream of exploring the unknown, finding the edge of the map, and then discovering what lies beyond. When people look back on this, and they will, they'll remember we didn't give up. That we kept dreaming, that our first few faltering steps in Andromeda were the beginning of everything they know.
So, Pathfinder. This sounds like an insanely insurmountable task. My first question is, how can they put only one person in charge of this? If anything, they should have multiple Pathfinders who can search different worlds at the same time and report their findings. Maybe do an Interstellar type thing where one guy gets stuck on the planet and we have to go find him. But no, instead, the survival of the human race is on Alec Ryder's shoulders. So, the plot sounds interesting enough, and getting to play as Clancy Brown is always fun. But then they had to go and introduce his dumbass children, that being you. You play as either Sarah or Scott Ryder, a set of twins that Alex seems to not be that excited to be around. Well, luckily for you, the animosity doesn't last too long because in the first 30 minutes of the game, Alec is killed. Tragic, right? I mean, yeah, it is. But to be fair, you've only known him for like minutes at this point. It's a bit of a stretch for BioWare to expect the player to be really gobsmacked about their dad dying in the game when all he's done is make some speeches and vaguely talk about your sibling in a general sense. On top of that, the way in which he dies is just plot hole city. You're starting to suffocate because your stupid helmet broke, and here comes limping dad to the rescue. Instead of finding a way that both of you could breathe without dying, which he definitely could figure out because a man has a goddamn AI in his brain, we'll come back to that, he takes off his helmet, puts it on your dumbass face, transfers the AI to your stupid brain, and then dies. What the fuck? So this man, who spent 600 years and God knows how much time preparing to come to Andromeda, decides to give up on the first planet he steps on. Oh, it ain't viable. Guess I better die now. The most qualified man to be Pathfinder just threw in the towel. Well, shit. Now what? Who's going to settle Andromeda for the humans? Thankfully, there was a backup plan. Cora Harper, a biotic so incredibly powerful that she managed to be a part of the elite Asari commandos back in the Milky Way. Oh, but just kidding, Cora. Even though you're completely qualified and should have gotten the job, you don't get it. Instead, one of Alec's useless children gets it. Ouch. If I were her, I'd probably just quit at that point. But instead, she gets relegated to being part of your ragtag crew and silently judges your garbage leadership skills. Now it's time to talk about the Ryder twins. If it wasn't obvious enough, this is my version of Ryder. She has my first name, so none of the characters call her Sarah, she's just referred to as Ryder. Because I made my Ryder look like this, her twin looks like that. There's nothing much to it. Your twin is kind of comatose the entire time, so it really didn't make a difference at all. Why were they chosen, you may ask? And the answer is, well, that's a good question. Sarah is an archaeologist who has no leadership skills and is grossly unprepared for the job, and Scott is just like a soldier or something. It didn't seem like he had any leadership skills either, he was just an Alliance grunt. They're both from the Citadel, which is pretty boring in itself. There's nothing much to talk about there. They have a mom who's dead or something because she has some degenerative disease. But then there's this whole ridiculous plot point that you find out by doing goddamn collection quests that she's not actually dead. She's just been put into cryosleep until someone can find the cure for her incurable disease. Fun, right? Honestly, through the grossly prepared cutscenes, it's kind of not even obvious that this family is a family. They're about as convincing as a Hallmark card. But that's sort of up to you, since you get to define your father's personality by choosing fucking dialogue options. I would show you one of these cutscenes from my own game, but the thing is, in order to trigger them, you have to find these stupid floating points of light. So let me explain something totally inexplicable right now. In order to find out the whole mystery that is your dad, and why he gave you his AI implant, you need to build up these fragments of memories. These stupid floating points of light are the memories. And if you recall in Mass Effect 3, you get to experience the Geth's memories in a sort of similar-ish fashion. But the way that it's done in Andromeda makes no sense. These memories are scattered on planets that Alec Ryder obviously never could have been to. As you start exploring worlds and terraforming planets, you'll randomly come across one of these memories as you're stomping around. Why? That is never explained. It literally makes no sense. Not only that, but you're expected to find all of these items by just roaming around random areas of the planet. There are no waypoints telling you where they are, you just sort of stumble across them. And they're not even in areas where you might have a mission. I guess it's supposed to encourage exploration, but I personally didn't even care to find them. The memories that I did find were boring as hell. The payoff for getting all the memories turns out to be the plot twist where you find out that your mother is still alive. Hooray? I guess. I mean, she's another random person that you've had no interaction with who you're apparently supposed to feel some sort of affection towards. A bit ham-fisted if you ask me. And that turns out to be the reason why Alec gave you the AI, hence you becoming the Pathfinder. I don't know why Cora couldn't have been involved here. She was close to Alec, and it seemed fitting for her to have this knowledge, and maybe there could have been a plot where you're upset as to why she didn't tell you. But nah, random plot point that went nowhere. However, to be clear, your dad's actually dead. So on that note, why don't we talk about the Ryder family in general, I guess. So, I should mention the whole deal as to why you and your stupid family came to Andromeda in the first place. For some reason, Alec Ryder thought that AI would help his stupid wife not be sick or something, so he started developing an AI. People found out about it in the Milky Way, and he was disgraced because, you're not allowed, hence the entirety of the trilogy. Ugh. So, because of Alec's breaking of the law, he decides that it's best to just flee the entire goddamn galaxy, which, coming to think of it, is a pretty extreme move. The Mass Effect version of escaping to Mexico or Russia seems like just going to another planet, but if you're really in a jam, you can just ditch the entire galaxy. So Alec was like, so long, suckers, good luck finding me 2.537 million light years away from this dump, and his family had to go with him. I'm getting a little off track here, so in order to organize what it is that I have to say, I'm going to start splitting up this video by points that I want to talk about. Hopefully it'll help you decipher what I'm trying to say as well, and by this point you've probably already decided whether or not you want to continue watching. It'd really mean a lot if you did continue, but if you find this boring, thanks for sticking with me up till now. On that note, let's get into chapter 1.
We should take a look at those KEP machines.
An acronym for Simulated Adaptive Matrix, SAM plays a huge role in Andromeda's plot. We've already gone over why he was created, but there's a whole lot more nonsense as to his purpose in the game. For starters, as far as his personality, Sam is basically Jarvis. That's it. That's his thing. He's British, and at times can be sarcastic, and tells really shitty jokes.
A neutron enters a bar and asks, "How much is a drink?" The bartender replies, "For you, no charge." Why don't Thresher Moors eat comedians? Because they taste funny.
He's also, I guess, interested in existence?
Hello, Ryder. Pathfinder, may we discuss your romantic attachment?
Alright, but I hope you already know where babies come from.
My experience of such attachments was a long-established relationship. Cherished, familiar, but tragic.
Mom and Dad.
I have never known the beginning of an attachment. Perspective on your partner would place it in context.
Attachment is a little strong. We're having a good time, that's all.
All life strives for connection. Now I understand better. Thank you.
He's not as hilarious as Edie or as interesting as Legion, but he's there to make everything even more bland. So to reiterate, Sam gets implanted in your brain, and that's that. No one even questions it, it just happens. Side note, I would be really goddamn irritated if someone implanted a fucking AI into my brain and I had to live with it for the rest of my life, because if ever he got separated from me, I would die. Yes, that is a plot point in the game, but we'll come back to that later. So, God only knows why, but Sam is just basically this game's way of explaining everything without explaining anything. The one cluster, yes, despite it being called Andromeda, you are confined to one cluster, which, yes, a cluster is large, but it only has 3 other alien species in it, all of which are boring. So, yes, the one cluster you're in has several planets that could be habitable. However, there's something slightly wrong with them, so you need to go to the planets and terraform them. How do we do this? Well, with basically what is essentially Reaper/ancient alien civilization technology. In this game, instead of the Reapers, they're called the Remnants. They're as boring as they sound. They're really not worth going into, except for the fact that for some inexplicable reason, Ryder, by using Sam, can control and interact with the Remnant technology. That's the main point here. Sam is the way that you can terraform entire freaking planets and an entirely new freaking galaxy. Can we just think about the astronomical odds on that one? Okay, fine. In the first Mass Effect, you land on Eden Prime and there just happens to be a Reaper beacon, but anyone can stumble across an ancient artifact randomly. But this makes no sense. A piece of technology, Sam, was built by a dude way back in the Milky Way for his own purposes. Alec had as much information about what he'd find on Andromeda as we, in the real world, do right now. And you're telling me that his AI somehow just has the magic ability to interact with technology that neither Alec nor his AI can even fathom or imagine? Right. Okay, sure. What's even more interesting is that Alec Ryder developed Sam for the entirety of the Andromeda Initiative, which means that each race has their own Sam. But because Alec is human, the human version of Sam is the most advanced. What's funny is that even though Alec made Sam, the person who actually managed to bridge the gap between AI and Pathfinder was your dear old mom, Ellen Ryder. Fun stuff. So, your connection with Sam. Despite you acquiring Sam by your dad kind of just transferring the AI into your brain, is inseparable. If anyone tries to separate Sam from your brain, you'll die. There's no explanation for this. You just weirdly have a deeper connection with him. I guess this is kind of connected to Alec Ryder's death, so let's just take a moment to talk about this one point that I forgot about. Why Alec Ryder decides to sacrifice himself for your stupid ass. He just couldn't deal with the idea of your mother waking up to hear that one of her children had died. So yes, that's tragic and emotional, but it still doesn't explain why they couldn't have figured out another way to keep both Alec and one of the idiot children alive. Anyway, whatever. Bad story writing is what I'd call it. That's all the plot holes I can sort of think of with Sam. His entire purpose doesn't really make sense. The only explanation I can give is just magic? Because even though there may be alien civilizations who may have the same concept of basic principles like gravity, space, and the elements that make up the universe, there is no way in hell that an alien civilization from thousands of years ago in another galaxy is able to be controlled by an AI whose use was basically being an advisory committee for the new pioneers of the universe. After all, even though AI is capable of learning and having its own thoughts, and even if it did have an idea about stumbling across another ancient civilization of aliens, why would it have any ability to control its technology? That being said, let's move on to Chapter 2. Oh my god, could you be any more boring with this BioWare? To start, let's talk about the aliens we already know about. The Turians, the Asari, the Krogans, and the Solarians. We know so much about them at this point, assuming the player had gone through the trilogy. So it's nice to see some familiar face. I'll come back to that. But we're in an entirely new galaxy. Where are them new aliens at? Oh, here they are. Yikes. Okay, before we tackle that, let's talk about our Milky Way friends. The way that all of us chocolatey beings got to Andromeda was by traveling on large ships called arcs. Ha, more Bible references. Anyway, each arc had a different race on it. The human arc, called the Hyperion, is our arc and manages to get to Andromeda without much hassle. But when we get there, a lot of the cryopods are all messed up and that's it. However, we have the other 3 arcs to talk about. When the arcs get to Andromeda, they're to dock at the Nexus, a sort of Andromeda version of what will eventually be the Citadel. The Nexus arrived a little more than a year before the human arc and carried the Krogan population. So hooray! Humans and Krogans are accounted for. Well, now we have a problem. The other 3 arcs are missing. Turns out they were, scattered because of the bad guys in Andromeda. The Asari arc was damaged and resulted in the crew ejecting 8,000 cryopods into space for collection by someone. Oi. Would not be happy if I were an Asari. So, okay, Asari down. Where are the Turians? Oh, yikes. It's been damaged by the black magic of the new galaxy that no one can explain. 4,628 pods were ejected by the Turian version of Sam. Good on ya, I guess. A lot of them end up crash landing on one of the habitable planets, and it was there that I thought I could maybe start this new life with another Turian boyfriend, but no. There are no male Turians to romance. Tragedy! Anyway, so the Solarian arc. Oof. Bad news. It was captured by the bad guys with several thousand of the pods being taken. For what purpose? Oh, they're being experimented on. Is this some sort of cruel joke? The most science-heavy race in the Milky Way is now itself being subjected to being science experiments? Well, anyway. So there are all the major races and what happened to them. Oh, we have one more arc to talk about. The Quarian arc, which was supposed to be in the game, but you never even see it. This arc is carrying the rest of our chocolate friends, that being the Drell, Hanar, Batarians, Elcor, and Volus. Apparently, because of the diverse occupants of the ship and their various needs, this arc took a little longer to leave the Milky Way. But we do find out that it made it to Andromeda. Hooray! Only thing is that it's in distress somewhere, and we have no idea why or where it is or if we can go get it. Considering we don't even get to see it in the game, my guess is that BioWare didn't have an answer for any of these questions either. So that sucks. Okay, so now that almost everyone is accounted for, let's talk about the other Pathfinders in the game. I actually had to look a lot of this up because I have no recollection of them. Like, they were that forgettable. And that's saying something for me, because let me tell you, I even remember the name of the dude in the first Mass Effect who was in charge of keeping the Peak 15 survivors on Noveria safe. His name was Captain Ventralis, if you were wondering, and this is what he looks like. Alright, so Pathfinders. The Solarian Pathfinder is a chick, and hilariously enough, you have to make a decision so irritatingly familiar that it takes away most of the feeling and suspense you could have. You have to choose between saving the Solarian Pathfinder or rescuing a bunch of Krogan scouts that went missing. Ugh! Seriously? After an entire trilogy of this shit, where Morden and Rex and Eve and Tuchanka and the Genophage were all a thing? So let me just say that this isn't the only instance of the residual Milky Way-esque hatred between the races. And honestly, I do understand. As far as anyone in Andromeda knows, nothing has been solved, but from a player's perspective, it's so boring. Can we please have like another conflict not involving the Milky Way races? We had 3 entire games for that purpose. Let's focus on the new beings we meet. But nah. Anyway, despite everything I've said, if you choose the Pathfinder over the Scouts, who your Krogan crewmate Drac told you to find, nothing happens. There are no consequences. It doesn't come up again, and there might be like 1 line of dialogue, but it doesn't affect your relationship with Drac or anyone else. On the other hand, if you choose the Scouts over the Solarian Pathfinder, she dies and is replaced by a male Solarian who has no Pathfinder training. Lovely. Alright, on to the Asari Pathfinders. There was a matriarch Pathfinder, but she gets killed by the baddies before you find the Asari Ark. Her bodyguard Sarissa becomes the new Pathfinder. Cora has a pre-existing connection with Sarissa. They were both in the Asari Commandos, and Cora speaks of Sarissa highly. That is, until she and you find out that the reason that the matriarch Pathfinder died is because Sarissa abandoned her post. So you have a decision to relieve Sarissa from being Pathfinder or keep her there. Keeping her there does affect the end of the game, but really not in any way that I think most people care about. Okay, I guess I'll talk about it. If you keep Sarissa, she's able to make a biotic shield around the human Ark in the final battle and saves the human captain of the Hyperion. If you choose to replace Sarissa with another inexperienced Asari, the captain of the human Ark dies at the end of the game, but, you know, karma for Sarissa's actions. Okay, so now for the Turian Pathfinder. You don't even get to meet him. He died when the Turian Ark hit the black magic. He's replaced by a Turian Spectre named Avidus, who I thought you could get with, but it turns out he's gay and was in love with the dead Pathfinder. At least that's what you can infer. No Turian boyfriend this time around. Damn it! There is a Quarian Pathfinder apparently, but there's no real information on that arc. Thanks BioWare, the coolest fucking arc! So we'll just leave that one. Alright, now to talk about the new species you find in Andromeda. Blue people, beige people, and robot people who you don't actually see. That's it. Blue are good, beige is bad, and the robots are just there, like they were the last time around. Turns out that beige people are turning blue people into beige people, and lead beige person wants Sam and pursues the Pathfinder because he figures out that Sam can interact with the robot people. There is no sense to this. There is no motive. They just needed a bad guy, so they came up with the beige people. Blue people are like Avatar-esque in their color, customs, worlds, mannerisms, etc. Beige people are just like stereotypical bad guys. So yeah, that's it. Alright, so let's move on to chapter 3. So I was never one for like a whole ton of romance options, but I did like the diversity of it all in the trilogy. I felt like there was something for everyone, sexual preference aside. If you were into Ice Queens, you had Miranda. If you were into bad girls with tats, you had Jack. If you like sweet and smart people, you had Liara, Tally, Samantha, and Steve. If you wanted to die, you had Morinth. If you wanted just like a quick hookup because it went with your character's personality, you had Diana and Kelly. If you were into incredibly boring people, you had Caden, Ashley, Jacob, and James to choose from. If you were into tragedy, you had Thane. And if you were into just the most awesome relationship ever, you had Garrus. I am not biased. Now let's move on to Andromeda's options. They're boring? Like, that's not to say that the characters aren't interesting on their own. Well, some of them anyway. But the romance is just like, How do I explain it? I guess I can kind of chalk it up to the characters in Andromeda don't give you anything special for your affection. Let me explain. I'll just be talking about the first Mass Effect because I think that's a fair comparison here. This is the first entry into what may be a new trilogy, although I doubt it. Anyway, when you flirt with Liara, Caden, or Ashley, they start to open up a bit more in a real, actually sentimental way. Ashley woos you with her poems, Caden breaks down his formal personality, and it's obvious that Liara hasn't ever felt these special feelings before, which is why she falls for you so hard. It's new, it's deep, it's different. It's like a real person telling you more about themselves after you cross that barrier. But in Andromeda, everything is so easily attainable. Cora tells you all about how she loves gardening if you continue to befriend her without even pursuing a romance, which you can't do unless you play as a male writer. I looked up the Cora romance and wow, it's a hell of a lot more explicit than any of the old games. Jeez. Anyway, with Liam, you can get the hooking up out of the way and that can just be it. Or you can pursue romance, in which case they try to make it special, and they even come up with a mission called Just For Us, to make it seem like it's really something different. Instead, you climb goddamn Mount Everest, only to go all the way back down. Definitely not as heartfelt as any of the things you do with your crew on the Citadel in the third game, but I guess they tried? Liam as a person is pretty boring. He's sort of the comedic relief. Lots of little comments and one-liners, and his loyalty mission is just full of weird, like, gaffes from a Marvel movie.
So where to? Find Rand and fast. This way. Not that way. Start there. Let's go.
The most interesting thing about his personality is that he smuggled a car into Andromeda that he and his dad were working on. Yeah. So I actually chose Liam, and it was more so because the game encourages you to pair up with someone rather than me actually being into the character. I'll briefly go into the other romance options for both male and female writer. For male writer exclusively, you can pair with Cora, who I actually like and keep around because she's voiced by Jules de Jong, the voice of Faith from Mirror's Edge. Gil and Avila. Gil is one of the engineers on the Tempest. He frequently gets into arguments with the resident Solarian pilot Kahlo. Gil is really into the idea of having kids and gambling, and that's it. Honestly, he wasn't particularly fun to talk to or talk about. Sorry to all you Gillians out there, if there even are any. Avila is a blue person. I mean, she's purple, but anyway, she's a fun Angara. I did actually like her a lot. She's really into history and humanity, and I don't know, I feel like she and I would be friends. Unfortunately, your interactions are confined to whenever you visit the Angaran homeworld, Aya. So there's that. That's it for solely male writer options. Let's go to female writer options. You also have 3 options here. That is Liam, Suvi, and Jal. We talked about Liam, so let's skip on down to Suvi. Her name sounds vaguely Pakistani, so I always thought that was cool. Anyway, Suvi is the Scottish science officer on the Tempest. I could also see myself being friends with her. She's interesting enough to talk to, and honestly, her personality is actually one of the deeper ones in the game. She's not just someone you can bang, she's the one person you can have religious, philosophical, and scientific discussions with. Despite being a scientist, Suvi is actually quite spiritual and will talk to you about her beliefs regarding both topics. It's weirdly interesting, especially when you consider how horribly done Ryder's lines were when she flirts with Suvi.
I saw pictures of the vault. Astounding how big it is. And how much of it didn't you see? What if it's way bigger? What's all that space for? Wild remnant parties? What else would you use it for? Oh, Ryder, you're adorable. I know. I'm really glad you volunteered to join our crew, by the way. I am too. New galaxy and all. I'm honored to be here. No, I mean, I think you're cute and I like seeing you up here. Oh my goodness, Ryder! Also, the accent. The accent is, I mean, it's not the only thing, but, okay, I should just go over there to the piloting thing.
Kill me now.
So, in my book, if you want to not cringe every 5 seconds, just stick to being friends with Suvi. On to Jal. So, before I chose Liam, I was interested in the romance path for Jal, but his whole thing is way too... It hits a little close to home, I guess. When you express interest in Jal, he takes you to his family and declares that you're his mate.
Jal! Jal! Wait. Is that bad news?
No, the Pathfinder is interested in where I grew up. Ryder, this is my true mother, Sahuna Amadarav.
Nice to meet you. I know Angara like the hugging.
Giles told me how much he admires you.
Really?
He's my favorite. Smart, loyal, kind. A great shot. Writes poetry, sews.
Mother.
I'm late for a resistance meeting. Stay clear.
Everyone, this is Ryder.
Hi.
Look who the Karkin dragged in. Welcome back. This is where I spent most of my days growing up. Me, my sister, Guana, our cousin, Etta, and brother, Finn. Then Bavzil, Rolu.
So wonderful to
Hey,
have
John.
you back.
Hey, human.
Jarl, you bring in someone special to meet us.
Wow. Cozy.
We like to live like this.
Gonna give your friends some real food?
Good to see you.
So if you were on the fence about it, well, too bad, because you can either fully commit to him right then and there, or you can pump the brakes and make him feel bad for assuming things. Basically, it's pretty terrible either way. Why do I say it hits a little close to home? Please refer to any stereotypical Bollywood movie regarding a relationship. You'll find that there is no dating, you say you like the person, and the next step is getting married and being a part of the family. Okay, so with that out of the way, we can start talking about the options that are available to both Ryder twins. We've got PB, Reyes, Vetra, and Carrie. So let's chat about PB for a minute. Pelisaria Basale, aka PB, is like the manic pixie dream girl of Andromeda. Her behavior and personality can be attributed to her age, that is, being a maiden in the Asari lifespan. She's fickle, quick to escape from any committed relationship, and extremely direct in her interactions. When she first joins your crew, she's already preparing for her inevitable departure by living in the escape pod. She eventually is added to the list of people you can just bang for no reason without pursuing any further romantic relationship. The relationship is sort of like the one male shepherd can have with Jack in the trilogy, only not as interesting or emotional. You can reject PB's advances and say you just want to be friends, or you can reject her and express interest in pursuing a real relationship. I found this whole thing shallow. I like the idea of a real romance. I don't really care about or want the option to just bang people without any sort of follow-up. I was super on the fence about my Ryder having a casual encounter with Liam. It seemed incredibly out of place and awkward, just like the encounter with PB is, but maybe I'm just an incredibly prude individual. Okay, so let's talk about the one guy who I'm really upset I didn't choose. Reyes Vidal. Oh my god, he is freaking cool and suave and fun, and there's a part of me that just wants to start the game over to choose him. He's a mercenary and helps you out a bunch with your main missions on Kadara, and I found myself actually enjoying the game with him around. I'm not sure what happens if you do express interest in him, because after my missions with him were over, he kind of just disappeared from the game. Am I willing to spend another 70 hours on this abomination of a game to pursue a relationship with this guy? Moving on to Vetra. Vetra is a female Turian. She has a younger sister named Sid. That's it. I found her fairly boring. All she really talks about is her relationship with her kid sister. She was a smuggler and mercenary back in the Milky Way, so that helps her help you out on your missions. That's pretty much it. I don't know, I wish I had more to say about her. Alright, so last, and also the very least in terms of character, is Carrie Tavessa. She's just another option for your character to bang. She's a reporter on the Nexus and will periodically ask you for your opinion regarding the happenings in Andromeda, and you can flirt with her during these interviews. There are no strings attached, and she doesn't care if you're dating someone else. If you're into making your version of Ryder into an up-for-anything kind of person, well, this is why you'd be interested in Carrie. So that's about it for romance options. I suppose it's cool that they gave you a bunch of options, but I think that quality is better than quantity. I like romance in games, and it was definitely an integral part of Shepard's journey in the trilogy, but here it's just like having romance for the sake of having it. I don't know, you'll have to tell me what you think. On that note, let's move on to Chapter 4. Oh, wait, okay, before I forget, I went back to record some footage and I found new floating points of light, you know, Alec Ryder's memories or whatever, so whenever you navigate to each planet, it shows you a list of missions that you can go on. Alec Ryder's memories don't show up. However, when you get onto the planet, there are waypoints that show where the floaties are. Just thought I'd correct myself and also add a scene from my own game. Okay, now we can move on. This is the chapter where I'm going to talk about all of the irritating odds and ends that made Andromeda a disaster. They say that the devil is in the details, and that is so true in this case. My favorite games are the ones where the details hold together really well. There's a crazy amount of lore in the Mass Effect universe, and I love it. each race has its own backstory and just it's great. Anyway, I'm not saying the trilogy was perfect, but it was as close to perfect as it could be. That is my biased opinion. I will admit that I cannot be objective on that point, but feel free to disagree with me. Okay, so that being said, I gotta address some stuff in Andromeda. I'm not going to go into the facial animations or things that other people have beaten to death, because we all know about that. Sorry, my face is tired. Anyway, alright, so I want to talk about the customization of Ryder. Instead of letting you pick out almost everything about the way you want to make your character, you have to choose from a list of preset options. So before I start bitching, I will say that I understand that the reason that they did that is because they needed Alec and Scott to look like you, and that's difficult to do if you decide to customize every single little detail. I get that. However, the preset options are just insulting? Like, wow, such representation and shit. Cornrows and Asians and dark skin and short hair and blah blah blah. Obviously they were going for representation and the ability to make it like The Sims by making it possible to have Ryder look absolutely ridiculous, but I think you can't do both. Either go all the way and make everything customizable, like the way you customize your entire Sim family, or just go with the preset, or make it as limited as it was in the trilogy. Although maybe I'm just one of those people who is never satisfied, I don't know. I can admit that, but this is my video and I can bitch about it if I want to. Because like, come on, you can make Ryder look like he got ran over by a fucking bicycle. You can make him have neon purple face tattoos. So I think I have a right to complain a little bit. Alright, on to point number 2. The planets were boring as fuck. I'm sorry, but they were. They could have just let their imaginations run wild here. Instead, we have 3 deserts, 1 Alaska, 2 Pandora, and 1 asteroid. That's it. I can understand making them vaguely similar if you weren't going to spend a ton of time on them, but bro, these planets are where most of the game takes place. Your job is to be on these planets. Anyone could have thought of this shit. Hot, cold, Avatar, and zero gravity. The only exception was the first planet, Habitat 7. There were floating rocks and lightning. But then they just phoned it in after that. Man, we're in Andromeda. I want to see the pushing of the boundaries of physics, and then somehow being able to live on the planet. Like, maybe a planet of just islands and the water is a weird color because it has some strange organisms in it, like the Pepto-Bismol Lake in Australia. Or a planet where only half of it is habitable, but it's nighttime for like ever and you can't go to the daytime part. That may be something I read somewhere or saw somewhere, but I don't remember. Anyway, how about a planet where you have to live on the tops of mountains and are unable to go down to the surface? What about another separation where only certain Milky Way species can live on certain planets? Why could humans breathe the goddamn air on the Angaran planets? It was established that the Elcor homeworld's gravity was way stronger than Earth's, so the Elcor evolved in such a way to adapt to it that humans wouldn't be able to. It was also already established that Turians and Quarians were dextro-amino-based life forms, and their food was incompatible with humans and Asari. They couldn't have thought it through just a little bit in Andromeda? Maybe do something original? I mean, we see plausible things totally out of the ordinary on freaking Earth in real life. And you're telling me we can't do that in another galaxy? I just think that there's so much that could have been done with the parameters that they were given. Essentially, how crazy can we make a humanity-friendly planet constrained by the laws of physics? It's almost harder to do this when you have every possibility like in a fantasy game, so I feel like this was the perfect opportunity for the imagination, but nah, here we are with nothing new to show. So next up, let's talk about Natalie Dormer. I swear to God, this woman's face has been burned into my brain because I've had to stare at it off and on for 70 goddamn hours. Who was in charge of making the Asari character models? Whoever it is deserves a smack in the face. Let's just take a couple seconds to appreciate all of the variety of faces of the Asari in the trilogy, shall we? Jesus, all they had to do was copy and paste real people's faces onto everyone. They did it before. Unless there's some conspiracy here where every single Asari in Andromeda, except for PB, is a clone of the Doctor on your ship, I do not understand why this happened. I don't really even know what to say to this. It's just lazy as fuck, and I think we all deserve more than this. I also think it's hilarious that they took one of the most well-known actresses at the time and cloned her face onto every single member of the Asari race. Was Game of Thrones not big enough? Did they need another marketing strategy? Oi. Okay, so for point number 4, let's talk about the exiles. So when all of the Milky Way assholes got to Andromeda, for some reason, everything was a disaster. There weren't enough resources, power, and preparedness to accommodate everyone coming out of cryosleep after the 600-year journey, and none of the planets that these assholes thought were viable were actually viable. Maybe that had something to do with the fact that the closest view they could get to Andromeda before they left the Milky Way was like several thousand years ago. Not exactly a great predictor of the present, is it? So because of the Andromeda Initiative's bureaucracy and the fact that the woman who came up with the entire idea apparently died in transit to Andromeda, as well as most of the senior leadership, people were real upset, and it started what was essentially a civil war on the Nexus. A bunch of people died and ended up getting exiled from the initiative. Okay, so let me stop here for a second to analyze this. This entire plot point makes everyone in the initiative look like immature and stupid little shits. It's laughable, honestly. You are in a new goddamn galaxy, and your idea of ensuring the survival of the rest of the Milky Way society is to engage in a fucking civil war? But maybe that's the point? That you can take stupid out of the Milky Way, but you can't take the stupid out of the stupid. Everyone in the initiative signed up to be there, so you would think that you could put aside your differences to try to figure out what to do here. Like, was that not clear enough? I would consider the initiative as much of an organization as the Systems Alliance was. Like, hey, we have a common goal, we need to work together to ensure the survival of our people, and even though things might be hard, we can get through it. But no. Instead, the initiative, under the orders of this asshole whose voice I could recognize 2.537 million light years away.
Good work locating the Asari Ark, Ryder. I gather there were problems with Sarissa?
We handled it.
Perhaps it's best I don't now. All that matters is that the Lucinia has returned, safe and sound.
Made the decision to force many colonists back into cryosleep and impose martial law on the Nexus after they attempted to colonize one of the desert planets, and it ended horribly. Twice. Way to go, Lord Wimborne. So anyway, when Dumbass here gave them the choice to either go back into stasis or be exiled, many people chose to be exiled. So the exiled were exiled and decided to go find their own planets to colonize. Yes, I said that correctly. There were planets that were viable for life that the initiative decided not to look into. When you get to the Nexus, it's just a husk of a station with nothing in it. Avina barely works, but when you find the exiles on Kadara, well, they're thriving. Despite the people on the Nexus being more holier than thou than you could possibly imagine, and considering the exiles to be criminals regardless of their reasons for leaving, the exiles are doing way better than the assholes on the Nexus. A lot of them had various reasons for coming to Andromeda and decided to live nice lives as homesteaders, miners, and explorers. But because of, I guess, a lack of screening, many people decided to become outlaws. That is, pirates, scabbers, smugglers, raiders, warlords, and the list continues. This also makes no sense to me. Your fellow exiled have proven that it's not at all necessary to commit crime to be successful in Andromeda, but a bunch of people decided that they wanted to play pirate instead? For what reason? How is it that you're suddenly able to take on any threat despite the mean aliens wiping out the first attempts at colonizing the desert planet? What is the difference here? Your attitude? I'm still thinking about this whole thing. It really doesn't make sense to me. Let me know your thoughts on it. Okay, so I'm recording this a little bit after I kept playing the game, and surprisingly, they actually address this point about the outlaws. One of the outlaws on Kadara is being a total dick to you, and Natalie Dormer, Lexi, notices it. She points out that everyone was screened before coming to Andromeda, so how did criminals like this get through? Well, after a really irritating bit of scanning, where sometimes it doesn't even work, Lexi figures out that these people's brain tissue was destroyed while they were in cryosleep, causing their personalities to change drastically. Some of them are aggressive and horrible, and others obviously suffer from hallucinations.
Hey there.
Don't know what they told you. I don't have nothing.
I guess I'll give them a point for actually addressing this. But still, you find this out, and then Natalie's all gung-ho about finding a cure for this. She manages to make one in like minutes, and she gets you to try to inject it into one of the outlaws. Okay, sure. And how do we know it's gonna work? Because video games? I don't know, this seems like it should be a big deal, right? Way bigger than the game makes it out to be. You inject the guy who's suffering from hallucinations after convincing him it'll help him. But dude, we just conducted a test on a human subject. This cannot be ethical. But I guess because we're the Pathfinder, it's totally okay? I don't know. I really don't have an answer for this. Alright, so for our last section regarding laziness, we're going to be talking about the way that a lot of missions work in the game. They're essentially busy work. So, I don't know if any of you have seen Joseph Anderson's review of Fallout 4, but one of the theories he had for the quests in the game were that maybe the devs asked all of the Bethesda staff to submit suggestions for things the player can do in the game. This theory is backed up by the fact that you can describe a whole lot of the missions in one sentence, like it was written on a piece of paper and thrown into a hat. I agree. It seems like Fallout was a bit more on the nose about it, but Andromeda is guilty of it too. There are these random missions you pick up to, I guess, immerse you further into the world, but they just feel like busy work. I'll give you some examples. There's an Angara whose sister is missing. Find her. A guy's sister decides to join the Outlaws, convince her to go back to her brother. A guy in jail asks you to deliver a message to his stripper girlfriend. These are all incredibly lame. Also, for some reason, they're really into making the missions about siblings. Not sure why. So let's take each mission and examine it. There's an Angara on Kadara whose sister has been missing for 3 days. She asks you to find her sister. When you select the mission, the waypoint takes you to exactly where her body is and you can scan her. She's been dead 3 days somehow. It says her cause of death was chemical burns, and then that's it. You go to tell the Angara lady that her sis has been under the floorboards 20 feet from where she's been standing this whole time. Please explain to me how this is not a waste of time. On to the next mission. That's sisterly love, though. On Eladin, there's a dude from Nexus Security who's searching for his idiot sister. She joined the Exiles and ended up on Eladin. He wants to find her and just, live on Kadara? So he knows enough to realize that there's this Turian smuggler lady who knows where she is. When he questions her, she doesn't give him any information. Why? What possible reason does this woman have to hide this from the brother? The brother then asks you to ask the Turian lady, and she is pretty forthcoming with the information.
Got info on someone named Isabel Halsey?
What am I, your personal database?
Come on, you're the only one here who doesn't want to kill me. Just help me out.
Fine. I've never met her, but I heard a few scavengers talking. Mention a cave out in the dunes. Something about Isabel's time being limited. This is the nav point. Just watch out. That's a bad area.
All of Eladin is a bad area.
Good point.
Ryder is asking on behalf of the brother. How is this any different than the guy coming up to her himself? You don't give her anything in exchange, and she doesn't give you a reason as to why she wouldn't tell the brother. But because you're Pathfinder, that somehow makes you cool enough to tell secrets to? Okay. Well, alright, so now you know where the girl is. Does the brother go with you in a valiant effort to get his sister back and convince her to come home? Nope. He sends you to go handle it. So you do.
Well, you're from the Nexus. Should have known. I don't sell to your kind. Matter of principle.
If you're Isabel, your brother sent me.
Kent? For what?
He wants you to go back with him, to Gadara.
Well, you can tell him I'm not going anywhere. On the Nexus, I was a merchant's assistant. On Kadara, I ran errands. Now, I make weapons for the most powerful gang leaders on Eladin. I get perks, protection, and no one would dare touch me. Finally get the respect I deserve. And the best part is, I don't have to talk to ass-kissing Nexus dogs. Except now, I guess.
Kent's waiting. Don't pass up your only shot to get off this planet.
Whether I like it or not, this is home now. I have no reason to leave.
You have it good now, but these scavengers will turn on you eventually. Just like they turned on the Nexus.
Yeah, I get it. Honor among thieves. Fine. Can't stand the heat here anyway. I'll send a comm to my brother. Now get out of here.
There's no Paragon Renegade thing going on where you have to have a certain type of personality to get what you want and convince her. Despite BioWare saying that the increase in dialogue choices would make your personality totally different than just the Paragon Renegade thing, it doesn't. At all. I'll show you exactly how ridiculous it is with the next mission. On Kadara, you can just walk into a jail near the dock. For some random reason, you can talk to one of the people being held inside of the cell. He was arrested for drunken activity. Why would he ask Ryder to deliver a message? That's like if I was at a grocery store and some random person was doing their own shopping, but I get their attention and tell them to send a message to my boyfriend saying I love him. Why is the Pathfinder the person to do this? Because no one else will, or... Okay, fine. I agree to send your stupid message.
Alright, what's the message?
My girlfriend Sela works at Tartarus. Most beautiful Asari you've ever seen. Skin like the ocean, eyes like...
Jim, the message?
Right. Tell Sela I've run into a complication, but I'll have the credits to pay Sloane's protection fee soon. Ask her to wait for me. Oh, and leave out the part where I'm in jail. Thanks.
How can they consciously put in lines like that and then just lazily paste the same face on every single one of the Asari? Anyway, what a stupid and pointless message. What the fuck is this? This doesn't sound urgent at all. This has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that you're in jail. You can't tell her this when you get out. He tells you to leave out the fact that he's in jail. So what the fuck is the point? Okay, fine. We'll go with his time-wasting shenanigans and go see the Asari.
Sela, I've got a message from Jim, your boyfriend.
Got it. Don't tell me he really thinks I'm friend.
Hopeful thinking on his part?
More than hopeful. Still.
Okay, so it turns out that this Asari is not his girlfriend. Okay, fine. Let's just move on from that absolutely pathetic point. So she's all like...
You tell Jim thanks, but I'm happy at Tartarus. I don't need rescuing, especially from a punk like him.
Now at this point, you can just tell her to tell him herself, which I think is perfectly fine. This is obviously between them, and there was no point in this message. And despite you saying no, you have to go deliver the goddamn message. What is this? Why? This is the absolute farce of a choice system you have. It's like a Telltale game, honestly. It's so fucking boring. It's just all so boring. You're just running around hitting the Y button and waiting a total of like 5 minutes to get from one area to another because of the loading screens. And maybe most people would be like, it's 5 minutes. But I'm sure all of you know the absolute irritation of sitting there and doing nothing for 5 minutes while the game loads, even if you're going to an area 10 feet away from the previous one. I get that it takes time, I get it, but it doesn't decrease the frustration, especially when you wait all the time and it's not even worth it. Okay, phew. I am calm, I am zen. I think I've ranted enough about this game for a lifetime. Now I can die in peace knowing that someone knows about my absolute disappointment in this shell of a game. Since the start of me making this video, I went back to play Andromeda for another handful of hours. I needed footage and also I needed a refresher on why I hated it. I did that for you! Just remember that! I'm kidding. I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for sticking with me through all of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. I'm having a ton of fun making them despite my frustration. But yeah, on that note, have a great week and thanks so much for watching.
Miss Williams, Commander, we need to talk. If we do not resolve this situation now, I am afraid things might become awkward.
Oh, awkward, huh?
I hope we can keep this civilized. I do not want things to become unpleasant.
Because it's been so pleasant between us lately. Look, somebody in this room needs to make a choice. It ain't me, and it ain't you.
I should have seen this coming.
I am afraid it was inevitable. I may not know much about human relationships, but I understand the concept of jealousy.
Jealous? Of you? You're not even our species.
Perhaps that is why you feel threatened. I am a rival unlike any you have faced before. Hostility is a common reaction to the unfamiliar.
Doctor, you keep smart-assing me, I'll show you what my hostile reaction is like.
I love it when women fight over me.
Sorry, Commander. That fantasy's not gonna happen. We're not married, Shepard. You want to get involved with some alien? Go ahead. It's none of my business.
You're special to me, Ash.
Yeah. Kinda hard to feel special while you're always chatting with your little blue friend on the side. Or is that my role?
This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. I never should have told you of my feelings, Shepard. I have put you in a terrible position. I am sorry.
I never meant for you to get hurt, but Ash is the one I really care about.
I understand, Commander. Perhaps it is for the best. She is one of your own kind. I am sure you and Miss Williams will be very happy. I should Go. I need to check on something.
Dear God, I think I actually feel sorry for her.
That's a surprise. A second ago you seemed ready to break her neck.
Or yours. No one likes to feel like they're not good enough to get what they want. Let's not talk about this here. It's not really the right setting for intimate conversation. You know where to find me.